Welcome everyone to Wakeman Town Farm Monday Night Lecture Series. My name is Bill Constantino, co-chair of Wakeman Town Farm and the moderator for this evening. Before we get started, Wakeman Town Farm has a lot of great programs coming up for adults and children, so please visit our website. Our next Zoom lecture is part of our pollinator series given by Alice Ely and Ryan Burnell called Garden Whispers. During that lecture, the participants are always encouraged to ask questions about gardening and our panels will be able to answer them. Garden Whispers will be held on May 17th at 7 p.m. So again, visit our website for the details. I would like to thank our partners tonight, Sustainable Westport and Sustainable Trumbull. Personally, I've worked in the solar and energy efficiency space for over 12 years, and I'm looking forward to tonight's presentation. Between the extended car warranty calls and solar firms either calling and knocking on your door all the time, we thought this lecture would be perfect timing to get your questions answered by some of the leaders in the space. Our goal at Wakeman Town Farm is to offer classes that help us all learn about different ways we can have a healthy impact on our environment. So let's get started. We have a great lineup and some great panelists. We have Ed Kranich from the Connecticut Green Bank, Susan Young from Posigen Solar, and John Roundtree from Roundtree Architects. Each panelist will now give a short presentation, and then we'll open the floor up to questions. If we don't get all the questions answered, we will provide an email with all the questions and all the answers from either John, Susan, or Ed. And make sure that if you have any questions during this, hold them to the end and ask them in the chat box. At this point, I'd like to kick it off to Ed. Ed?
Thank you. And I apologize for muting you before. That was a slip of the finger. That was my fault. So let me just share my screen here and we'll get started. Okay, just a moment. Okay. So thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Ed Kranich from the Connecticut Green Bank. I'm a manager in the incentives programs group. So just to start, a little bit about the Connecticut Green Bank. We are a quasi-public state agency tasked with the mission to confront climate change in a way that benefits everyone in Connecticut through low-cost financing and attracting private capital. So it's kind of a mouthful, but essentially what we do is we support clean energy projects in a way that attracts private businesses and financial institutions to invest in clean energy. In the case of residential solar, which we're here to talk about tonight, we offer a small rebate to promote customers making smart energy choices for their homes. No, as a quasi-state agency, we are a public institution, a state agency, but we're funded instead of from taxpayer dollars, we're funded by an assessment on your utility bill through Eversource or UI. So the Green Bank has a number of programs and offerings to serve commercial, nonprofit, industrial, municipal, and residential customers. And tonight we'll just focus on residential solar and financing. So you'll see in the top left corner there, I believe that's actually a Posigen customer. So now we'll get into how to go solar for your home with the Connecticut Green Bank's Residential Solar Investment Program, also known as the State Solar Rebate, you might hear it referred to as. So before we start, just note that our website, GoSolarCTcom, is really the best place to start for all things residential solar in Connecticut. You can learn about solar and read into more detail than I'll discuss here. You can learn about financing, find a contractor. We break it into 4 easy steps for you, from getting into solar, finding a contractor, learning what to expect with installation, and then learning what to expect after you've been installed. So the RCIP, the State Solar Rebate Program, was launched in 2012 with a modest 10-year goal that was met in 2 years, and one that we actually reach about every few months now. So the market has really exponentially grown in the last few years. So we've updated our goal a few times through legislation, but we're once again approaching our new target. So I should mention that we don't exactly know yet if the program will be extended again. It's currently on the agenda for the Connecticut Solar Energy Association's legislative agenda. So we'll probably know in June whether our program will be extended, but right now we're kind of working on the assumption that we only have a few more months left of rebates. But this information is still useful for going solar now and in the future, whether there's a rebate or a different type of rebate or not. So how do you go solar? The best tool you can have for any major decision, of course, is knowledge. You always do your research first. So solar is a relatively new technology for a lot of people. In some ways, it's comparable to other home improvements or large purchases, but in a lot of ways, it's very different. Solar is one of the few home improvements that has a measurable return on investment. So you'll really want to do your research, find contractors, and compare quotes before making a decision. So on the technical research, technology is always improving, so it's hard to say that there's a good time to go solar relative to better technology coming out. However, it's largely incremental improvements in a pretty well-proven technology that's been around for about 100 years. So efficiency, power density, and reliability are what improve over time. And financing and prices can vary between quotes. So most contractors use what we consider the good equipment from brands like Jinko or Hanwha, and you'll find that there are also some premium modules available through manufacturers like LG or SunPower. So that's kind of the major difference with technology, financing, kind of things to look out for. So once you learn a little bit about what you want, it's good to learn how you want to pay for it. So you're going to want to learn about the different ways to finance next. And then that way you can narrow down your decisions and compare apples to apples when you're looking for a contractor, and you'll know what it is that you're looking for. To find a contractor and compare quotes, we suggest starting with the Find a Contractor tool on GoSolarCTcom. And then you can narrow it down with reviews online. You can ask people in town, and you can always call the Green Bank to ask about a contractor. If there's someone you've gotten a quote from and you just want to know a little bit more about them, you can always reach out to us. We're always here for that. So once you feel comfortable with reaching out, set up appointments, and just like with any large purchase, take your time. Incentives are limited, but you shouldn't feel rushed. Solar is not right for every home. So once you sign a contract, you can expect to wait a few months for installation, and you may need to be home for some things like site measurements, installation, inspections, things of that nature. So now the biggest question that most people have is about financing. So I'll discuss the financing and their differences. So the first two blocks here, the lease and the PPA, are very similar. You can almost think of them as almost the same thing with a different payment structure. So with leases and PPAs, you can even be cash flow positive on the first month. The goal with these arrangements is to get your solar bill plus your new electric bill down to a lower amount than your old higher electric bill used to be before solar. And if that's confusing, I have a visual representation of that on the next slide. So with leases and PPAs, you'll typically see a little bit smaller savings, but you'll see them right away in some cases. And the main difference between leases and PPAs is the payment. So with a lease, you'll have the same amount every month, and that may go up year to year, but month to month, it will be the same. And with a PPA, it'll fluctuate based on how much energy you're actually producing. So it's a power purchase agreement. So it's kind of analogous to your electric bill. In the summer, you'll produce more energy from your system, so you'll pay more for it. And then in the winter, when you produce less, you'll pay less for it. Since you don't own a lease or PPA system, you mostly look at your monthly or annual cash flows. So it's not a typical ROI like you would see with something like a purchase. So with a purchase, it's more familiar. You buy something, it saves you money, hopefully, and you wait for the savings to outweigh the investment. So that can take 7 to 10, sometimes more years, depending on how much you pay for the system and how efficient it is. So you'll always want to make sure that you get the best price and you get the most production for that money. So here's the very, very simple visual representation of kind of what you want when you're going solar. This is really the goal. So before solar, for example, you may be paying $120 a month, and after solar, you're still going to have an electric bill. You're still going to pay probably $20, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. And your new bill, which whether it's a lease payment or a loan payment, that's really what you want to see. And, and then in this case, there's $20 savings a month. It's modest savings, but it's pretty realistic. It can be more or less, of course, depending on what kind of system you get. And so here we have a few examples of kind of what to expect from your payment, what you'll actually pay. So this is based on real averages from recent data. For the PPA, just kind of averaged out what the monthly price would be. So this is about typical for what you'd be looking at when you're comparing quotes. So you'll pay anywhere from $100 to $150 a month for a typical size system. Some contractors will do a 20 or 25-year term. Others will have that be a flat rate. Some will have them have a 2 to 3% escalator per year. So your lease price may be $100 a month for 1 year, and then $103, and then $107. So it's important to look out for that too. Not all contractors do that. Posigen, who's on the line, doesn't do escalators, which is nice. So just keep in mind that when you're buying something and you're looking at prices, salespeople like to negotiate. So just because you've been presented with a price from whether it be a lease or a PPA or a purchase, try to negotiate. Get a few quotes and compare them, and wait it out a little. So it's just like with buying a car. And now with the cash and loan option, we typically see an average price of about $3.50 per watt. That's kind of an important metric, is that price per watt. So when you're making this big purchase, really all you want to do is take the total number of watts in the system and the total system price. In this case, it's about $32,000, 9 kilowatt system. You're going to be somewhere around the $3.50 per watt. That's kind of a good starting point for negotiating a good price for a typical size system. So I know that this was a lot of information. There's a couple extra bits here just to provoke some thought for questions. So I will pass it back now, and I'll be available for questions at the end as well. Thank you.
Okay, Susan, do you want to run your slides through right now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Hello. Okay. Thanks so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Susan Young, and I am the Community Marketing Manager with Posigen Solar, Solar and Energy Efficiency. And I usually like to begin by just giving a little bit of my backstory. I have been a resident of Connecticut for I don't know, back in the early 80s. I've always been looking into solar for my home. And, it was just to a point where I had reached out to a contractor, I want to say maybe about 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. I might dating myself. Bear with me, it's the end of the day. Okay, so when I looked into solar, I was told that I needed to have $30,000 down to get my solar system. So at that point, I thought, well, maybe solar is not for everyone. But then lo and behold, came Posigen Solar to town. When Posigen came, I actually reached out to Posigen based on something that I saw the mayor at the time was advertising on solar coming to Connecticut in the form of this great program out of Louisiana. No money down, no credit requirement. And I said, this kind of sounded too good to be true, but let me look into it. So if you could jump to the next slide, please. So when I reached out to Posigen based on the commercial I saw on the television, I actually thought, well, you know what, let me give it a chance. In the back of my mind, I was still thinking about, you know, that 30,000 I was expected to pay down. At that point, it really, you know, it's not something that I wanted to do at that time. When I had my system, when they came out and I went through the process and I had my system installed and I saw how minute my electrical bill went to, I reached out to the company and told them they got to hire me because I got to tell more people about the program. So what exactly is the Solar for All program? So what Posigen does, as Ed had mentioned, it is a lease program. It's a 20-year lease. There's no credit requirement or minimum income requirement or any down payment. And yes, the payment is fixed for the 20 years. We currently have 4 system size, and our goal is definitely to make sure that our homeowners are saving money. When Posigen began working in the state of Connecticut, the solar parity just really wasn't there. Solar at that time was only available to a certain population, and other families were being left out on, you know, based on various reasons, whether it be down payment or the credit or whatever it be. Right now, if you could go to the next slide, please. Right now, we have over 4,000 customers throughout the state of Connecticut who have gone through the Solar for All program. And the Solar for All program, what we do in working with Connecticut Green Bank, we run programs where we reach out to different towns, the municipalities, and we try to find the LMI families. Those are the families that really need, you know, the most help. And we try to make sure that we do the assessment and make sure that we can save them money, because we do have a savings guarantee on our program. So far we've done quite a few Solar for All campaigns, Bridgeport, New Haven, Hartford. I mean, the list is there. And we're also partnered with several, you know, nonprofit agencies as well. The beauty about the Solar for All program, though, that I just want to say is that, you know, Solar for All makes it possible for any and everyone, every homeowner, I should say, who has a large electric bill, or, you know, who has, you know, a desire to go solar. This option is available. It's not only accessible, it's also affordable. And one of the things that we do is that really making sure it's more of an education piece, because there are still so many families that have been turned down before because they did not have, whether it be the credit or like myself, you know, I did not have the down payment at that time. So now that there's this program that's open up, we do, you know, I really thank, you know, the Wakeman team to, you know, to invite me to be on today, just talk more about the program. So if it's something that you've looked into before, you're considering going solar, there is a really valuable savings on the solar program. And it really does give you the power to really manage your electric burden, your cost, because with the solar and the energy efficiency together, it's a substantial saving. And I always just say too, I mean, anyone could put solar panels on the whole roof, but we have to make sure that the energy efficiency piece is critical, because we got to make sure we keep that conditioned air, whether it be the cool air in the summer or the warm air in the winter. We have to make sure that we're keeping that energy efficiency in that home. So I am here. I will be available to ask, you know, to answer questions, you know, at the end of our meeting tonight. And thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I'll now kick it over to John Roundtree.
Okay. Okay, everybody see this? Okay. So hi everybody. This is John Roundtree. I'm an architect based in Westport, and I'm going to show you a few projects that I've worked on to just give you an idea of what I do. I've been in town for 25 years now, and I've had a solar consulting business for about 8 years, Westport Solar, and I'm primarily doing architecture now. I specialize in net zero energy homes. So I'm going to show you one we did in Westport finished in 2016. This is a 7,000 square foot house at 54 North Avenue. And I'm really proud of this house. It's obviously it's a big house, 7,000 square feet. But I'm proud to say that their electric bill averages $40 a month, which is pretty amazing. I check with the owner every now and then to make sure that hasn't changed, but it's averaging $40 a month. And that's all, all the power for this house basically is derived from this 10 kilowatt photovoltaic system you see on the roof. The way that's done is through a number of techniques, mostly to do with insulation. The walls are 12 inches thick. The windows are triple pane windows. All of the systems are electric. We use electric heat pumps for heating and cooling, as well as for hot water. And the loads are very low. So we also won first recipient of the Westport Green Building Award. So I'm proud of that as well. The house is right next to Staples High School. You see it right off of North Avenue. These are a few pictures. This is the solar system. It's as I said, it's a 10 kilowatt solar array using sun power modules. The system is, a typical system, just to give you a little, if people that don't understand or know solar. Basically, you have your panels, which generate direct current electricity. That feeds into a device called an inverter. The inverter converts that direct current into alternating current, which then feeds directly into your panels. So the system is generating power. It's going directly into your house. If at any time you're generating more power than you're using, you're exporting that power into the grid. So essentially you're selling the power back to the utility. So the meters now that we use are bi-directional meters. They register what you buy and what you sell, and you're billed on the difference between what you buy and what you sell. That's the net amount. This system was mounted on a standing seam metal roof. You can see here, very easy to install for this system. Let's see. And I'm going to jump now to my own house. This is our house at 130 Campo Road South on the corner of Galt Avenue. We bought this house in 1991, I believe. So we've been here a long time. It was originally a 1910 farmhouse that we renovated about 12 years ago. With the renovation, we added a large solar system on the roof. This is a 5 kilowatt system on the main roof. And this is a 2 kilowatt system on our garage. So we have 2 systems. The combined total is roughly about 80% of our electricity right now. These are the inverters for the main system. These are 2 inverters for the 5 kilowatt system. This is outside the meter, and this is an exterior disconnect, which is a safety feature that allows us line workers to shut the power off during a power outage. I also like to show this slide. People often ask me, how does snow affect solar panels? And what tends to happen is, after a snowstorm, as soon as the sun comes out, the snow melts very quickly off the panels. You can see this is actually the same day. In the morning and the afternoon, the panels heat up and the snow slides off, usually all at once with a big crash. It scares everybody in my house. But you have to be a little careful not to be underneath it. But it does work. It melts the snow very quickly. And then this is the garage. We built this garage about, well, I guess about 8 years ago now. But what's unique about this is this system is separate from the house, and it has a battery backup. So this inverter, it's a Xantrex inverter, is a grid-tied inverter, but it also charges batteries, which are used really only when we lose power. And so when we had that big storm, if everybody remembers, when most of the town was out of power, we were able to keep our house running for about 4 days, which is how long we lost power for. So we, fortunately the sun was out most of those days. So we lost, during the day, the power would, or the sun would recharge the batteries, and we were able to run our refrigerator, lights, and just some emergency loads through that time. This is also unique. As an architect, I'm very interested in building integration. So this is these are panels that are, that sort of act like skylights. They let light through. And I'm also proud to say I'm an owner of a Chevrolet Bolt. I just picked it up a few weeks ago, and I am now charging my car from these solar panels. So I'm very, very pleased with that. And then just the last shot, when as an architect, I really look, when I'm designing a house, I really look for the best roof. I look to design the panels to really integrate into the architecture. This is a job we did when I was with Westport Solar with SunPower modules. Very attractive, actually won an award, and I'm really proud of it as well. It's a simple system. It's about a 5 kilowatt system, but it integrates nicely into the architecture. And so I always try to integrate it into my buildings in a way that's aesthetically pleasing. So that's my thing. And so I'll stop there. Thank you very much for your time. I'll also take questions at the end.
Great. Thanks, John. So now we do have a good amount of questions here, and I'll start reading them off, and I believe we can point to some of them are going to be pretty easy for you guys to kind of pick up on and who should answer them. But first question comes: what happens when you sell your house? Ed, do you want to take that, or Susan?
Yeah. So that's a great question, very common question. If you own the panels, it's very easy. It's just like any other part of the home that just transfers right along with it. If you have a loan with that, then you're going to have to pay off the loan. So you may have to negotiate with the buyer, that there will be some type of credit where, they'll build it into the price of the house, and you can use the proceeds to pay off the loan. So it's kind of individual based on, how much you owe if you own them. If you have a lease or a PPA, transferring is usually no big deal. If someone can qualify for a mortgage, they can qualify for a lease. It's just a question of whether they want it or not. I think in most cases, it comes down to having the right real estate agents who understand the benefits of solar, maybe ones who are on a meeting like this, and they know how to market it as something that a buyer would actually want, because the home has very low electric bills as opposed to a home without solar.
Yes, and I just wanted to add to that also. So with the PosiGen program, if you do sell your home, as Ed mentioned, yes, it's transferable to the new homeowner, but we do also have an option where if customers or homeowners wanted to take their system to a new location in the state of Connecticut for a small fee, we'll be able to remove those panels for the leasing program, just to be clear, and transport them and install them on their new solar feasible home in the state of Connecticut.
Thank you. Also, another question came in, and Ed, I see that you posted something into the chat box, which is great, but someone wanted to know, do you have a list of recommended contractors, or how do you go about, answering some of the questions when folks have about contractors?
Yeah, so we have probably 50 to 60 total eligible contractors in our program, and we keep them all at GoSolarCT.com. At any point, you can click on the side of the screen where you can review contractors. We make sure that they meet our standards of, being a legitimate business that is licensed and insured. They don't have any bad, outstanding reports or anything like that on them. And really just, we make sure that they hold up to our standards, so they don't have excessive complaints. They don't charge absurd prices. They're just generally good, upstanding contractors. So we have, 50 to 60 in total. There's probably about 20 that are very active, on a regular basis.
Thank you. Let's see, another question came in. can you replace your roof after installing this solar?
Yeah, I can take that one.
Great.
No. I mean, you have to take the panels off. The panels are covering the roof. They're bolted to the roof. So if you have to replace your roof, you have to remove the panels. I usually tell people if your roof is more than 10 years old, you might consider re-roofing before putting the panels down. On the other hand, the roof below a solar panels don't get a lot of direct solar radiation, so they last a lot longer. So it actually protects the roof. But yeah, if the roof is near its end, you should definitely replace the roof before putting in the solar panels.
Yeah.
John, I have a follow-up question to that, just from questions that other questions came in, reading through it. Have you heard of anyone that's going through, like if you're getting toward your end of life of your roof and then they want to use like a spray or a silicone over it to cover it as opposed to replacing it? Have you come across that at all? Or maybe Ed or Susan, have you guys heard about a layover spray?
I haven't.
Never heard of that. Only on flat roofs.
I wouldn't trust it though. If someone's trying to sell you that, I would run. I don't think that'll work.
Okay, great. If you're building a house, can the solar be financed with the mortgage? Ed, do you want to take on that one?
Give Ed that one.
We actually do, so we collect information about how people finance their systems. I don't think we have one for new home mortgage. But I think that's going to be an individual question for the bank if the bank is comfortable with that. I'm sure you could include that in there. I don't know if John, if you see folks who do mortgages that wrap that all in.
If you're building a new home, you can build the cost of the solar into your construction loan or whatever other financing you're doing. So yeah, that often happens. That becomes part of the construction.
Okay. Actually, I'll go down to the end. A follow-up question that came in about the roofing, since we're sticking with it, is, what kind of roof would you recommend putting underneath the solar panels? For instance, if you had a cedar roof, would you put an asphalt or slate on the areas where you expect to put solar?
I would put the least expensive roof below the solar panels because you can't see them. I would say probably asphalt shingles is probably the least expensive roofing to put under a solar panel. I mean, you can put solar panels over wood shingles or slate, but it's more difficult and more expensive to do it that way. So yeah, I would definitely go with asphalt shingles below the panels. Yep.
Okay. So if you are building a house, when is the appropriate time to start the solar process? When the roof gets installed, before or after?
Go ahead, Ed.
No, well, if by the process you mean engaging a contractor, I would do it as soon as you can, because it can take months for them to get around to it.
Yeah, I mean, also say that, a lot of times if I'm designing a house, I'll send the plans to a solar contractor to get estimates before the roof is built, just to give them an idea of what the cost is going to be. But it makes sense for them to come out once the roof is built. It makes sense for them to come out and do a site inspection, because some of the issues that have to be measured are shading. If you have trees, you want to make sure that the trees aren't going to be, shading the roof, or that the roof is at the proper orientation. So there's really usually 2 or 3, visits, I guess, if you will, before you sign a contract.
Is there a contractor that handles both the solar and the geothermal that either one of you three have worked with or currently work with?
I don't know of any. That's really a different, totally different, profession. I don't know of any now.
Okay.
I don't either. They're very, very specialized professions.
Absolutely.
So the next question came in is these folks chose an electric supplier who use 100% renewable energy. Do they accomplish anything by installing solar if they're using 100% renewable energy supplier?
Sometimes the renewable energy suppliers can actually cost you more money on your electric bill than going with standard service. Of course, it's using clean energy, which is your goal. So if you have a system on your home, you know, we talked about savings. Those savings that we talked about were over standard service. So if you can save more over having an alternative supplier, then that would be even more of a reason to go solar, because you're getting clean energy and you're doing it more cost effectively.
John, question for you on the system on North Avenue. Does that have a battery backup, the one on North Avenue?
No, it did not. No. And as a matter of fact, I don't think he has a generator either. So he's out. He's out when the power goes out. However, I'll say this: when he did lose power, he lost power. No, wait a second. No, this is totally an aside, but it's kind of an interesting thing. Like when you guys remember, like 2 or 3 years ago, we had that polar vortex, and it was like 5 degrees.
Yeah.
For a week. And I asked him, his name is Alfred. I said, Alfred, how is your heat pump working? And he said, well, he said I turned it off. It wasn't. I didn't think it was going to work that efficiently. So he had a gas fireplace that he fired up, and he was able to heat his house for 4 or 5 days using a gas sealed combustion gas fireplace. So those houses, very tightly, well insulated. They don't need a lot of heat, and they can ride through a storm. Anyway, just a side note.
Good feedback. I have another question here for, can one of you guys talk a little bit about the difference between a solar panel system versus a solar roof? The person asking is restoring an old barn, but I guess it could be in reference to a house as well. But the entire roof will need to be replaced, and they're trying to understand the cost difference between a normal roof versus a solar roof versus adding solar panels. So you've got 3 dynamics really going on there.
You want to take that, Ed? I'll join it. I can jump into.
Yeah. Well, so I can say you've probably all heard of the Tesla solar roof. Those are starting to come up in Connecticut now. That one, unfortunately, Tesla has decided to not put those systems through our rebate program. So we actually don't know too much about them in terms of what they cost and really what they look like. I would love to be able to inspect one. But for right now, they're not putting those through our program, so we haven't seen too many of them. I know Posigen has something called Decotech, which is it's almost like a hybrid type of solar roof. So Susan, if you want to mention about that.
Yes, so the Decotech program, it actually replaces the portion of the roof that you would have the solar panels put in. So of course it would take, oh, am I muted?
No, we hear you.
Okay, I saw you. Okay, yes. So for the Decotech program, instead of replacing your entire roof, a portion of the roof will actually be the solar panel. So it's pretty much almost flush with the rest of the remaining portion of roof. And that's a different program from our regular program, but I could talk more about that if someone has specific questions. We could follow up after, Bill.
Okay.
Yeah, I really don't have any experience with the shingle. I don't have any experience with Tesla. I've heard that they're very expensive, but I don't really know that, and that they're hard to get. But I don't know any other products. I think, from a cost standpoint, you're probably the least cost is a rack-mounted solar system using standard panels. It's probably the least cost system.
Ed or Susan, you have anything to follow up with on what John just mentioned about Tesla, being a different animal and dealing with the normal general contractors, shall we say, in the solar side that referring to? And could you talk a bit about the pros and cons if you guys have any experiences? I know that's kind of a tough one to grasp on.
Well, I'm not a big Tesla, fanboy, so I'm not gonna hold. But I would like a Tesla, but no, they do pretty good work. I think with their standard rack mount PV systems on the roofs. The Tesla shingles, they're a totally different animal. They're expensive, but they look great. It's a pretty new technology, so it's not you're not really sure what you're getting quite yet. and they are more complicated in terms of the wiring and the installation because they're a different material. They sit very close to your roof, so there's no cooling, and there's a lot of wiring that has to be done. That's just different from a standard rack mount system. But Tesla does do regular rack mount systems, just like all the other contractors in Connecticut.
I'm going to bounce back up here. Is there a, we'll call it, I'll add a little bit to this. Is there the smallest system you guys would recommend? I know there's probably some incentives, rebates. Do they kind of add a little bit to that? Ed, is there a minimal on the size of the system that you guys would recommend, and do rebates play an impact on that?
Well, so for what we recommend, it's just going to be based on what you need and what you can afford. So, it's not really economical to buy a system that's larger than the amount of that will produce more energy than what you actually need in a year. Just because at some point you'll be paying for energy that you're not using, and then you won't really get anything back from the utility from net metering. If you plan on, having more people in your home or buying an electric vehicle, that's another thing. But for the most part, we can provide a rebate for one panel if you want. I think PosiGen's smallest system goes down to 3 kilowatts.
Yes, 3.5.
So most people go with anywhere between 7 to 10 kilowatts because that's just the typical system in Connecticut. But yeah, the maximum is really just going to be whatever you can fit and whatever you need.
What happens when you use all your allotted power? Can someone answer that? Maybe Susan, do you mind answering that?
No, that's fine. Okay, so depends on what system size you use. So each homeowner is uniquely tailored with a specific system that match their consumption. So if they use all that their system generate, then they will be taking more power from the utility company. And whereas on the other scope, if they use less power, they won't be needing as much. They'll have kind of like credit, like what you would get in like a rollover minutes from that.
Okay. Let's see. When is solar not appropriate for a house?
When you live in the forest, mostly.
Under trees.
I second that.
Facing north.
We do have a minimum. We do have a minimum efficiency rate. So if you're below that threshold, we won't even approve a rebate for you. And
No.
PosiGen, a lot of contractors have that too. They'll just tell you don't bother.
Exactly. We do have a savings guarantee, so we really want to make sure that it's beneficial for the homeowners.
I mean, sometimes, architecturally, it's not desirable. And, if you have a historic home, people object to that, or if it's in a historic district. What I've seen, and I haven't done one, but there's also the option of doing a ground mounted system. If you have a house, but if you have a lot of property that's sunny, you can put the panels on a ground mount, either fixed or a tracking system that will generate power that feeds underground to your house. So that's an option. You have to have a couple acres, and that will work also.
For an owner finance system, what is a typical ROI? I know there's a lot to take in there, but Ed, do you want to take that one? Is that?
Yeah. So again, big asterisk here. It all comes down to what you pay and how much energy you're producing and how much energy you need. But the typical goal of savings is that you can match or beat your old electric bill with your new loan payment and new electric bill for maybe 5 to 10 years. So we'll say on the higher end 10 years, and after that, all of your savings are really just kind of money back in your pocket. So and a system is expected to last 20, 30 or more years. So if you can get those savings for 10 to 20 years for the remainder of the life of the system, then that's going to be all money back to you, to put it simply.
Right. And the next couple of questions kind of fall in line with what you're saying, Ed. So I'll probably stick with you on this one. Like, so, with the loan, there's a rough time range you can break even. That's typically what you mentioned on that question as well. But I guess Susan and Ed and John, I guess you guys can answer. In your guys' opinion, is it better to lease or own the solar PV system? I think each one of you should. I know it's a business decision, but I'll let you guys.
Okay. I'll go ladies first, right?
Go ahead.
Okay.
You're-
All right.
Go ahead.
So with the lease program, I am definitely a fan of the lease program, especially for Posigen, because all the maintenance and everything is included in the lease and it's flat. So I mean, it's fixed. There's no escalation for the 20 years. You just definitely have so much options to do when you do the lease. Whereas for someone who purchased it, that's it. It's yours. You own it. Year 19, if something goes wrong with my inverter, I'll just call Posigen. In fact, all our systems are monitored. So they'll probably know even before I realize something is off. And I don't have to worry about, having someone go and replace anything. It's already covered. So for me, it's a peace of mind.
I mean, most of my clients choose to purchase the system because they can take the tax credit. They have a tax appetite. They can take that. And they own it. It increases the value of their house. They can hopefully recoup the investment if they sell their house. So I would vote for that. But I certainly, I mean, not having an escalator is a great thing. I know a lot of these companies, have escalators that may make the costs you pay go up every year, and you don't have that. And I think that's great. And I'm glad to hear that. I've heard a lot of others that do have escalators, and that's I steer people away from those.
Yeah, definitely no escalator, and then it's the solar and energy efficiency together. To me, it's a win-win. So
absolutely.
All right, and I'm being biased here because I
Of course you are.
I'm going to sit right in the middle and say that those are both great points. Not really allowed to give my professional opinion on which is better, but we see probably 80% of people go with a lease or a PPA, probably just due to simplicity and just there's kind of no worry. As Susan said, it's all taken care of in a warranty. You're not really responsible for anything.
And I tell people too, if you're, if you have trouble financing it, definitely go with a lease. One of the things you have to remember is you're really reducing your carbon footprint. And I think that's important for people to know, that it's not just about the money, it's about reducing your carbon footprint and reducing your CO2 use. So that's a really important point. I think we should all be making for anyone thinking of solar. It's not just a financial decision.
definitely,
It's an environmental decision.
I agree. Any solar, any solar is better than no solar.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Fair point. I think Ed, you picked up on it, and I'll let Susan and John answer this as well. But in your opinion, what are the best panels? I know Ed, you'd mentioned. I tend to agree. It's typically LG and SunPower. SunPower seems to be the one that leads the charge for the most part. But John or Susan, do you guys have anything to add?
I mean, it used to be SunPower. I think there's so many other companies now that have. I mean, aesthetically, I think SunPower looks the best. But there's a number. I mean, I think LG and others make panels that. I guess they've copied SunPower in the aesthetics, so they look great and they're less expensive. So they pretty much all have the same warranty. So I don't know. I mean, I guess check the warranties. Make sure. What are the warranties, Ed, now on panels? Are they 20 years?
So SunPower is one of the longer ones. They're 25 years in most cases,
Okay.
And a lot of modules will do 20 years on parts and 10 years on production. And I think SunPower is 25 and 25.
Okay.
But most contractors go with kind of just the cost-effective, good tier panels. And I never see issues. We look at the data for the entire fleet of 50,000 plus systems, and you're more likely to find something going wrong due to just installation error or
Right.
something breaking just by chance than just having a bad panel.
Right.
I guess I would have a follow-up question on the SunPower and the better panels. Are they rated better panels because of the degradation factor, or is it because some panels might be at degradation factor of 0.5% versus maybe 0.25 or 0.35? Can one of you speak on the degradation factor of maybe the higher end panels versus the lower end panels?
I don't know. What do you'd have to take that, Ed. I can't assume.
So we always assume a 0.5% degradation factor every year, just across the board, and that's about right on a fleet basis. So it's not so much that, it's, I guess you could see with SunPower and LG, you're dealing with really big companies, particularly LG. They're not going anywhere. So you can kind of have a little more faith in their warranty. They may have just better manufacturing practices. That's kind of what SunPower leans on, is that they have better quality manufacturing. Their panels aren't gonna, they won't buckle, they won't get water intrusion, they won't short out, things like that. They're also, physically bigger, and they look better in some cases. They're a nice sleek black with black rails. They don't look as purple as some of the cheaper panels, but it kind of just comes down to a preference.
Okay. Is there a general rule of thumb of a cost in square footage of a house? And does it have to be absolutely facing south for, I'll let John, do you want to jump on that, or Susan?
Well, as far as facing south, now they're in fact, you guys know this, a lot of companies are using microinverters. So there's an inverter behind each panel. So each panel basically operates independently. So you can have different exposures. You can have east or west exposures. So you're not paying a penalty for panels that are shaded, possibly. Each panel operates independently, and you can actually see the output of each panel on your smart device. That's a pretty cool thing. As far as the usage, it really depends on how much electricity you use. If you're heating with electricity or using a lot of electric appliances, you're going to need more solar. If you've been living in a house for a while, you can give get a 1 or 2 year rate history on your house, so you can match the solar to supply 100% or whatever of that load. But it really depends on how much electricity you use and what your roofs are like, and if you have good solar exposures. So there's a lot of factors. A lot of factors have to be looked at.
Susan, I know you have got either a couple minutes or you have to jump off. Do you want to add anything before you go? I want to be conscious of your time.
Thank you so much. I just want to reiterate that for anyone who has considered going solar in the past and for whatever reason have not, it's definitely worthwhile looking into. Not only the savings, but I'm not sure if it was Ed or John had mentioned, but lowering that carbon footprint. And there are many programs out there, find something that works for you. If you decide to do whether the purchase or the PPA or the lease with Polsgen, whatever works, but it's just something that's definitely beneficial for everyone. Thank you.
Susan, thank you so much. We really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time. Ed and John, there's a couple more questions if you guys don't mind staying on.
Sure, I'm good.
Great.
Okay.
Bye, Susan.
I'll put my email in the chatter and then I'll go. Thank you.
Perfect. A gentleman asked a question that he's looked at solar a few years ago, and then the company did a flyover, probably with a drone of some sort, and it said it wouldn't work. Has technology changed, I'm going to guess, to believe from what you just kind of mentioned about east, west, north, south facing, that he should take a look at it again?
If it was a few years ago, I think even just a few years ago, people were optimizing with with microinverters or with string inverters that can track multiple power points. So I would say if they said it didn't work, maybe look into tree service. If you want to make it work, it never hurts to take a second look. It's really hard to say because I don't know why that person would have said it's not feasible. But technology hasn't improved so much that a forested home would be better today.
Yeah, and I mean, I would encourage you to ask the contractors to do a site visit to come look at your house. They can also measure the shading. If they go up on a ladder, they can measure the shading effects on a particular roof very accurately. I don't think those flyovers are very accurate. So I would definitely have someone make a site visit to your house.
Well, I think that was all the questions that we had for the time being for this. And it's ironic and great that it came right to the 8 o'clock time frame. So I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Susan, John, Ed, and behind the scenes, Haley and Paul for helping us out run this event. And stay tuned as we have many more of these Monday night lectures coming up. And the next one will be on May 17th on Garden Whispers. So John and Ed, thanks again so much. Very informative.
Thank you.
A lot of great
Paul.
answers.
Thanks. My pleasure.
Thanks for inviting us. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Yep.